Welcome back to the Digital Liberation Front, having a little bit of a Friday libation. But yeah, today we have Miss Carrie Barber with us, my fellow progressive insider from Hair of the Dog. Beautiful show this morning. So I want to salute her on that. And then we also have Seven Blackman from the KC Info Rail, my brother in the Digital Liberation Front from the Midwest, hailing from Kansas City, Topeka, Kansas, born and raised. So I grew up on KC barbecue and KC jazz culture. But yeah, today I wanted to just talk about the concept of health. At Progressive Insider, we've been focusing a lot on health. This morning's interview on Hair of the Dog, basically we discussed with a mental health professional a lot of the issues that people are facing, in this time, dealing with COVID, dealing with Trump, the upcoming elections, dealing with isolation, all this, a lot of anxiety, a lot of tension going on. So I salute Carrie and the other members of Progressive Insider for taking us in this direction where we're focusing, on this very, very important part of our existence in health. But I want to expand the topic a little bit to include all these other aspects of health. We talk a lot about mental health, and I do want to talk a little bit about that and entertain a discussion about that. But there's these other things in regard to health that actually symbiotically interface with our mental health. Environmental health, for instance, if you live in a city where there's pollution just rampant, and that's the air you're breathing, then that's going to affect your mental health. That's going to affect your physical health and physical well-being. Economic health, and Seven's got some stuff about that that we're going to talk about today in regard to the shift in monetary policy and how that's affecting us, or how that's going to affect our society at large. And so, one of the best ways to address mental health, in my opinion, is preparation, knowing what's coming next. And I think that's the main reason why we're dealing with a lot of anxiety, is because we don't know what the hell's coming next. What crazy thing is Trump going to say or do tomorrow? What country are we going to be, beefing with, the week after that? What's going to happen in regard to job stability? Millions of people unemployed, trying to get something somehow, somewhere, so they can make ends meet. So, part of discussing politics is trying to prepare for that, trying to get ahead of that and have these discussions. So whenever it's time to make decisions about these things, somebody else or some other group of individuals, that's been preparing their own agenda in the background can't just, come up with their plan and say, this is what we're going to do without any kind of pushback. If we have some kind of discussion beforehand, before we get to that point where new monetary policy is implemented, then whenever they come, when the corporations come, with their agenda and how they want to run things for their benefit, we can say, well, yeah, we've been having this discussion and fuck that. We're not doing it. This is what we want to do. So that being said, I want to thank you too for being here this beautiful Friday evening for me. I know you guys are further out west, but yeah, thanks for being here and having this discussion with me.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. Really appreciate it, and loved the first show that you guys did. So we're absolutely excited to have you guys here and share your input and make sure that the full scope of policy and the human condition is absolutely talked about. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, Gary, thank you for joining us first and foremost. And I'm thankful for you all just having me here on this platform right now. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say that I'm willing to add on my little 2 pieces to whatever the topic is at the moment. But I feel like today is one of those days where I feel like I don't know, the weather is kind of, I don't know, kind of dreary, and things kind of, it's just one of those melancholy kind of days. So we'll just see how this goes.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm not expecting, there are no expectations in regard to disposition. I guess that's one of the big things in regard to when it comes to what we're dealing with,
Sure.
right now. Like, there's, I think because we're in it and we've been in it for a while, there's this expectation that we should be going back to normal, that, people, need to, just, get over and adjust to where we are right now. We've been in it for, a couple of weeks now. I don't even know what day it is anymore. I don't think anybody does. But yeah, like, we have to recognize that we are still being stressed. We are still under emotional duress because of this disruption in our lives. There are people still trying to figure out what they're going to do. Like I said before, how they're going to, pay their bills, put food on their table, put gas in their car. Our whole society was set up for individuals to, basically live, paycheck to paycheck in some circumstances, but they were still able to live and go out and hustle and do something, rob Peter to pay Paul, to put money, put food on the table. But we don't have that anymore now. Like, now you can't go out, I'm gonna hustle, I'm gonna be an Uber driver, for a week, that'll help me, cover, this internet bill or whatever. You don't have that anymore, so there's a lot of people like in a place now where they have never been before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're I mean, what is it? Hand to mouth right now in a lot of aspects. I mean, a lot of industries have been shut down in the wake of, everything that's going on with the coronavirus. I mean, it was funny the first week or two when we see, those pictures of Uber drivers or whatever covered in plastic, covering their little section in plastic and all that, and all those little posts and memes that came out about that. But now that we're to the point where they can't even drive anymore. They can't function. Like, a lot of them have been shut down. I myself, I used to be an Uber driver, and just to do my taxes, because I used to do Uber last year, and just to do my taxes for the prior year, I had to pull the app back up, and and it wanted me to log in as if I were, trying to sign back up or whatever. And it was like, hey, you can't sign up right now. We have to put you on the waiting list because of COVID-19. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. I still, was able to get in and do what I had to do. But it was just like, that's a crazy message that it puts on there to say that, you can't even, they aren't taking any new people on right now due to everything that's going on in it, in the wake of COVID-19. Also, I mean, I work in corporate, in my daytime. I'm a business analyst, and I've worked for, some, pretty big corporations, doing contract work here and there. Generally, once I finish a contract, I have a next contract lined up, right after that. I'm usually like back to back. But it's been to the point where I've had several interviews that were completely canceled, and positions that were closed due to everything that's going on with COVID-19. I mean, some consultants that I used to work with told me that they've, work slowed down for them. Some of them are laid off or not working right now. Everyone's on unemployment in some, form or fashion. And, it's crazy, where we are right now and the sort of leadership we have. I mean, in my personal opinion, doesn't give us any sort of like encouragement or real, positive feeling of, oh, okay, we're gonna make it through this thing, intact. I mean, we were to a point where he said, what was it, 15? 15 was a good number. For 15 people having the number, and then it's gonna go down to nothing, and it's gonna just go away. He said it's gonna go away.
The lies.
Yeah, and now he's to the point where he's trying to reconcile the possibility of 100 to 200,000 deaths. I mean, what, like what, and he's still, and in the midst of that, he still has the nerve, has the gall to what, be sarcastic and be funny and come on. We need leadership right now.
I can interject here. Seven brings up a really good point when he's talking about his personal experience here. But I think the reality is what we're seeing, this is not new. So going back even before Trump got elected, we saw episodes where things were cracking at the seams. And we can demonstrate that by the CDC started tracking a brand new cause of death, and they called it death of despair. And what they were looking at primarily were those people who were self-medicating, either through risky behavior or alcohol, hardcore drugs, heroin epidemic, that type of thing. These are all things that people were using to placate themselves. And part of that came from people who, yeah, I mean, our generation, we were told do everything right, go to school, get a good job, get a mortgage, get married, and do all of these things. So when you started doing these things and it just wasn't panning out, you didn't have the bootstraps, let alone be able to pull yourself up. So this is where death of despair came from. And what was remarkable about that is most of these causes of death are attributed to, you know, low income, minority, whatever, but not this one. This one was solidly in the middle class, middle-aged white male, which we'd never seen before outside of World War. So that right there showed an economic collapse on the brink. And then you bring in Trump, and then we've got this pandemic. So everything right there. These were the indicators that the way that we set up our economy and the way that we look at how we pay people and disparity in income and all of these things, it was always on the brink of collapse. And I would even suggest that somebody like Trump was always inevitable.
That's why I say, like, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, minorities and what minorities, you know, have had to, you know, deal with. And there's a lot of talk about, you know, the issue of despair and poverty and these consequences of our society upon, you know, people of color, you know, the poor and whatnot. I also believe that there's a lot of white males who are victims too, because of the fact that they were sold this false dream, this false reality that, you know, as long as you hate these people over there, and as long as you look out for yourself and you know, work hard, you know, you're going to have, you know, your house and your car and your family and your beautiful wife and whatnot. You just need to focus on that. And so, you know, they were told you have a path. Like the rest of us, you know, we're told, like, you know, that's just the way it's always been. You know, it is what it is. I mean, you're a woman, you're gay, you're black, you know, you're mentally impaired or whatever. Like, you know, there's going to be some, you're Muslim. There's going to be some stigmas that you're going to have to deal with. That's going to make it difficult for you. You just need to accept it. Here's a group or organization you can join. They're advocating on your behalf. But this country is made for, you know, white males. But the fact is, it wasn't made for white males. It was made for the white male elites. And that whole white male bullshit was put out there to basically give them insulation. So whenever they're under attack, they can say, hey, my fellow white males, these people over here, they're stealing your job. These women over here, they're demanding more rights. And that's going to bring down your paycheck. So it was an ingenious ploy that I don't believe that they intentionally made, they stumbled upon, but an ingenious ploy to basically turn a good section of their demographic into these attack dogs. And now these attack dogs have morphed into, you know, something that they can't control. And that's how, like you said, Trump was inevitable, Carrie.
Oh, absolutely. And I think Seven could speak to this probably far more effectively than I can. I deal with health and insurance parts of it, but yeah. So when we had talked about maternal mortality rates and reaching the dubious level of #1 in the world, but that was mostly Black women, not all, but mostly Black women, nobody raised a fuss. But then when we started having, and the other thing besides death of despair that I think is just amazing to me is among the #1 causes of death now in the United States is sepsis. that's a common bacterial infection. You can get it from a scrape or a wound or untreated UTI or whatever, totally treatable. But it is now among like the third and fourth cause of death in Georgia and parts of Alabama, even in the north. In Illinois, it's fourth and fifth, depending on which quarter you look at it.
Ain't nobody trying to go to the hospital, Karen. Ain't nobody trying to I'll drink some bleach. I'll drink some bleach.
Oh my God.
but it just speaks to even people with insurance who have good jobs cannot go. We're just afraid to spend that kind of money because everybody was teetering on the brink, and now we have this pandemic which has just exposed all of the weaknesses that we have in our healthcare system, in our economy, all across the board, and even how we relate to each other, right? So we talked about on our show this morning, mental health, and it's not really seen as a health component, but Sarah Williams, the therapist that we had on, had a brilliant point. She's like, it's all part and parcel to physical health, because if you're not in a good place, in a good headspace, you actually are at greater risk for dire effects from COVID.
Yep.
Right? So we see environmental effects, nutrition, and mental health all play a part into the likely outcome if you do get infected or multiple infections with this. So it all goes together.
Yeah, I could see like all of those factors kind of coming together, like the mental, the the financial, I mean it and poor leadership. I mean, we can't forget about that. I mean, it all just kind of, it doesn't create a great scenario for, or a great ground from which, positivity can sprout, But I kind of what we were talking about, or what you were talking about earlier about, people joining the military kind of for, and having having this idealism and thinking that, that's the enemy over there and that's what I need to fight against. I'm reminded of this article that popped up, pardon me, I watch entertainment news and all that good stuff sometimes. So Adam Driver, I believe is his name, the actor. He he was, in the military and all that big, husky guy. I think he's like 6'4", 240 pounds, built like a linebacker or whatever. So, he had joined the military. Well, first of all, the only reason that this is even a story is because he had, the story went viral because all of a sudden everyone thought that he was like this huge Islamophobe and all this stuff. They're saying, oh, he hugely hates Muslims and all that stuff, because in the article it states that he was saying that he joined the military because of 9/11, just like tons of other people did.
Yeah.
But it also states in the article that he went, once he got there, he realized, what am I doing? What am I fighting these people for?
Mm-hmm.
So and that just kind of leads to that illusion that a lot of us, are fed, and well, I won't say that illusion. An illusion, because we're all fed different types of illusion. I know the one I was fed was, go to school, go to college, get a good job, get a good education. You'll be, I had a picture in college that said like, all I did was go to college for 4 years, and this is all I got. And the dude had like a Lamborghini, all these, several huge cars and things in the background, a helicopter, mansion, and all that stuff. Not that I wanted those things, because I'm not a materialistic person, but still, it's like these are these are the attainments that I have, attributed to myself and my education. So I'm like, okay, cool, let me get that. But it's like, so we're all fed some sort of illusion or some sort of story that kind of it keeps us distracted, hopefully long enough to find a new enemy or a new person to aim our disdain at, it seems.
Yeah.
Where, while the people who really manipulate and set up the entirety of the system still get the, raced off scot-free.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the American dream was always, I mean, the 2.5 kids, the house, the picket fence, the mortgage, all that stuff. That's always been like, the carrot dangled, in front of the working class to push, to pull the economy forward. And that's why you're seeing this big, this big push to go back to work. Like, you got the dude sitting on the carriage, basically cracking the whip at the working class, basically saying, move, damn it. Like, I don't give a damn if there's, COVID, in the street. Run over that shit. You'll be fine. It's going to be okay for you.
Right. Be a patriot. And I think you bring up a good point, because it has been said that you cannot have a military coup in the United States, because Americans will never go for it. And I kind of believe that's true. But what they said you can do is, like the frog in boiling water, turn up the heat. So we're all about the same age. We're not going to name it, but we're about the same age. I remember being in elementary, being what they called the latchkey kid, because both of us were. And I was like one of the first latchkey kids in elementary school. And it was such a bizarre thing to have both parents outside the home working.
Yep.
Now, not only is it common,
it's the norm.
Well, it's the norm, and I guarantee you one of those parents is probably working 2 jobs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that's okay, so in my lifetime, in our lifetime, we went from this all the way over to here like that, okay? So, I mean, it is accelerated, not enough that we notice, but enough that when you stand here and you go, wait a second, something's not right.
Well, I think it's accelerating at a rate that those of us, or those who do kind of notice, or those of us, I think like you and I, and my man B here, those of us who do have some inkling that, hey, something's not quite right, we get the benefit of being, I guess, one of the first ones out to say, hey, the sky is falling, my hair's on fire. While everyone else looks at us and say, "Hi, you're crazy."
Yeah, yeah.
So we get to, hey, that's our benefit. That's our world. We get to.
But the thing, and that's the twisted thing, and I feel kind of guilty, about how I feel, because I'm in a situation where I'm separated from an urban area. I'm in an industry that allows me to telecommute and work at range, so my paper isn't stopping as a result of what's going down, because certain things I anticipated, as you said, I was talking about, oh yeah, the sky's falling, this is a problem, it's kind of crazy over here, and people saying, it's not that bad, it's gonna be okay, it's been worse, we're not at world war, people in other generations, they lived through worse than you have, and stuff like that. And so basically trying to minimize my perspective. But, when everything collapsed, then it's like, validation. But the thing is, I don't want to be, I'm not trying to be like, haha, there you go. Now you're going to suffer. No, I mean, it's like, okay, now that we're here, I feel like you will actually listen to what I'm saying now. Like, you'll actually hear some of these solutions. Like Bernie Sanders is someone that you would actually consider as a candidate, not electing somebody from corporate America that put us into this shit is something that you might actually think about before you do it again, or at least have some kind of plan for how you want to offset that influence. But yeah, I mean, I feel that now. I feel like a real discussions can be had where they could not have been had before, because everybody had something to distract them with.
I obviously agree with you. We're on the same network. But what I find amazing is part of the homework that Andy and I do. We have to scour mainstream media or corporate-owned media to find out where the patterns of reporting are. And you would think during a global pandemic, where even celebrities and like relatives of famous politicians are passing away because of this, where we're seeing children being denied.
Wait, have any celebrities passed from this?
Elizabeth Warren's brother just passed away
2
days ago. So you're starting to see this more and more. But they're still not talking about expanding Medicare. What they're talking about is going the opposite direction and paying 10 to 20 times more for COBRA to prop up insurance companies. You know, I rail against this all the time. The difference between an insurance company and actual healthcare are two entirely different things.
Night and day.
Absolutely.
You still have them talking about let's give public money to a private insurance company that does zero towards care. They have no effect whatsoever on care. They are just it's a contract. That's all it is, a service contract.
But they're able to get away with it, or get away with presenting that as an option because of the degradation of information and knowledge that exists in our society. There's a bunch of, and that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to start having, you know, discussions like this. I was glad to find Progressive Insider. I was glad to find people like Seven, because there is a dearth of knowledge about what is going on. Like, you got people who don't even, they didn't even pay attention to the impeachment trial. They didn't read the Mueller report. Like, you know, they don't know what the hell is going on. They want solutions. They want everything to be fixed. They want shit working again. Now they want to be able to go to their jobs and do what needs to be done, but they don't even know the basic stuff. Like, you know, they're arguing about, like, you know, why can't we just go, you know, get these antibiotics to handle the situation? Well, first of all, it's a virus, and, you know, viruses don't respond to antibiotics. It's not the same thing. Viruses aren't even technically alive, where antibiotics, life, it's alive. So it's like, you know, you got to become, you know, a science teacher, an economics professor, you know, an English instructor, a government instructor, to get all these people up to speed, because they were so busy just focusing on, you know, their worlds and how everything was going fine for them, you know, until we got here now.
Yeah, I mean, we have a completely selfish existence, but you know, so, well, like we're sold this, you can have this selfish existence sort of you know, a lifestyle, I believe. But when you go from that to, hey, no, you have to do exactly what we say, how we say, when we say, I mean, that's a huge, you know, it's a huge change. It's a huge transition. I would think, you know, something like that will make people want to, you know, fight against it and, you know, go run and kicking and screaming, even though it's for their better. It's for their better good. Yeah. You know, I would just think, or I would just hope, you know, you know, speaking of selfishness, you know, while people are out here and, you know, existing and, you know, doing the, you know, gloves and masks and all this stuff and, you know, 6 feet distance and social distancing, I really would hope that they would be more mindful of the environment as well. Yep. I mean, let's talk about environmental health while we're talking about health.
Exactly.
I mean, one of my guys up in Chicago, as a matter of fact, he's a photographer. He, you know, one of his pictures, he's been doing a picture every day for the, you know, 30 days, doing a 30-day challenge right now. I think that like day 18 and 19, he posted a picture of like all these, you know, gloves, rubber gloves in the middle of the street. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. What are we doing? It's like, it's not about you. Like, come on, man. It's about everybody. It's about everybody. This whole thing, this whole existence isn't just about us. We have this symbiotic system where we all need one another. We have to, you know, rely upon one another in some sort of way. And, you know, but and the financial system that we have right now is, I mean, it was basically set up specifically in that way. It was specifically set up so that we could, you know, have, you know, one person does, you know, builds the widgets, the next person sells the widgets, the next person buys the widgets and takes them over here to use the widgets for the thing over here, whatever. And there's money that's transferred in each transaction all the way through that thing. But it's like, I feel like, you know, I was watching this documentary earlier today, and it was like, you know, it's like, regardless of whatever monetary system we're in, the dollar or fiat always fails. There's a 100% fail rate for dollars. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a 100% fail rate. And, you know, I'm not saying that people think about things like that, but I know I do. You know, like stuff like that really matters to me. And it, when I start looking at, the weird, changes of the or fluxes of the stock market, or the fact that we have 26 million people who aren't working right now, yet the stock market is doing fine. Gold futures are going through the freaking roof. Gold is about to hit 3,000 an ounce.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, it's financial systems have been set up such that, like, whatever sort of fiat dollar system that you're using, it's going to fail, and you're always going to end up reverting back to the gold. So whoever has gold at the end of the day, when the game is over, wins.
True.
I said all that just to say, like, I feel that, if you're thinking about, where I can work, or where I can get my next, paycheck, or this or that, and you're hoping that you get a next stimulus or something like that. What if on the back of that you're thinking, like, what if these dollars don't even mean anything?
Yeah. No,
Like,
I mean, Carrie was talking to me. I can't remember when that conversation was. It was last week, or it might have been the week before. About like where where our money comes from. How it's how money is put into this system. And like, I mean, she corrected me on some things. I consider myself to be pretty damn educated. But like, yeah, just our whole relationship with money is in capitalism, is designed to be, this, I don't want to even say symbiotic, parasitic dynamic.
There you go.
It's not symbiotic, it's parasitic. I mean, it's designed basically to bleed the worker dry for the benefit, of the person at the top, the producer or whatever. When in all reality, what's being produced is that labor. But then we tack a dollar value to that labor, and we depreciate that dollar value over time. So it requires more labor. And then next thing you know, you aren't technically a slave because you're working and you're getting a paycheck, but your paycheck doesn't cover shit.
This job. You can leave anytime you want.
Exactly. Like Massa said, the door is that way. So, you can walk out anytime you want to into the night. You leave your shoes at the door. You're not going to have health care. You might die out there, but you're free to go anytime you want. Anytime you want. You'll be fine.
Sure.
So there are 2 points here that we need to keep in mind. First, you talked about the dearth of information. This is why a program like this and the conversation that you guys are having is so important, because there aren't a lot of center progressive, broadcasts and conversations going on. But here's the bottom line. When it comes to money is a tool. That is all it is. It is a tool. And what we're seeing right now is the conversation is being put into the right order on some level. So when we talked about, we moved away from the gold standard. The other thing that happened is not just if we moved away from the gold standard, but that was the beginning of the great lie, right? So we've heard the phrase about if you tell a lie big enough, everyone's going to believe it. So what happened was they started talking about monetary policy that we understand now as neoliberal and neoconservative in a way that was not accurate, but the effect it had, and this is what we've been talking about this entire time, is income inequality and artificially suppressing wages. So we know that today, the median income, had it not been artificially suppressed, should be around $90,000, not 42.
Yep.
Right. So, so that was part of what was going on and why we're seeing everything fall apart right now, because that big lie was nothing but an economic bubble, and it is now bursting because of all the effects that we have. So I do want to make a plug for some of the programs that we've already done on Progressive Insider. We have 2 interviews with Warren Mosler and some more of those coming up that really explains how money actually works, and these pieces that we were raised to believe, much like go get a mortgage and you'll be fine. No, things like the deficit. The deficit does not measure what we think it measures. And when the deficit goes up, it measures what we invested in. So what we're talking about with progressive policy is investing public money into the public good. So that's your Green New Deal, Medicare for All, federal jobs guarantee. And what that does is grows GDP like that. Medicare for All is even by Republican standards, supposed to elevate GDP by 3% every year. 3% with one program.
Yeah, now, we're talking about gross domestic product. Keyword product. People will produce if they're healthy. People will produce if they don't have a shitload of debt behind them. I mean, yeah, you can motivate somebody by saying, yeah, we're going to take away your house if you don't pay for it. But, you know, whenever you're talking about like crushing debt that can never be paid off, like some of these, you know, bills that students are having coming out of college and whatnot, that's not motivational debt. I'm not going to be able to pay that shit off. It's not going to happen. So I'm just going to be stressed. I'm not going to produce as much. I'm going to recognize at some point, you know, even if I don't recognize it actively, I want to passively recognize that, yeah, you know, this is not going away anytime soon. This is how it is. This is how it's going to be, you know, and you're not going to put out as much. What's the point?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I didn't mean to bring the conversation down with...
I'm sorry, you didn't. Go ahead. But
this is why these conversations matter, right? Part of the education, part of basic civics. Most people have no idea when they go and vote. They know presidential races and congressionals, but they have no idea about the judges and all of the people that affect them more. They look at their property taxes. Well, those are all those down ballot races, right? So that is exactly why we started this program, and you know, to bring back that civic education in a non-judgmental way where people can engage in the conversation and learn. So, yeah.
I feel like something like this is definitely necessary, and you know, having these conversations, and you know, just actually for me, it's a great way to, you know, just feel like, hey, I'm not crazy. You know, that, you know, there are other like-minded individuals who also feel like, you know, yes, the emperor is not wearing clothing, and
facts. He looks ugly as hell. He needs to put something
up. Oh my God. Okay, you said that we would, the gross, I'm sorry, what did you say the income would be right now? It should be at about 90. Median. Yeah, you said it should be about 90,000. But in this documentary, I believe they said that the minimum wage should be at about $35 or something like that right now. Like if especially if everyone's wages were to rise at the same rate as CEOs salaries were to raise, I mean, oh my gosh, everyone wouldn't, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't even have the incentive to work. I guess that's what they fear, you know, or maybe that
there will always be incentive to work because maybe some people want a brand new car, right?
He's right in that there would not be an incentive to work for somebody else. There will always be an incentive to work. I'm going to want to create something, I want to draw something, I want to sell something or whatever. But whenever I'm using my labor for me, I'm not putting money in Jeff Bezos's pocket. It's more about it's about how people utilize their greatest resource, which is their ability to produce. And the system was designed initially, or we were given the impression that initially it was designed for, just like you're talking about, Carrie, everybody to be able to, you know, be free, be your own man. You want to go and you want to make, you know, banjos all day long. That's what you do.
Be your own person.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
You're free to do that. But with the introduction of neoliberalism, you know, and, you know, neoconservatism, which is all this right-wing ideology that basically is funneling money into the people at the top of this pile. It's, you know, you need to be loyal to the company. You need to work for the company. You need to represent the company in this way. You know, the company will take care of you as long as you take care of the company. No longer, you do your thing and you go forth, young man. You be independent. You create. You do for you. No, work for the company. The company has your back. Talk to HR if you have any problems.
Yeah, they had to find a new way to hold on to you at once they stopped giving you retirement. So once they stopped giving you those, people having those 30 and 40-year careers with one company and all that good stuff. Once that stuff stopped and people started job hopping, corporations needed a new incentive to get you to stay, to lock you in. You want to live, don't you?
What's so like living? I live in Chicago, and I would strongly encourage everybody to look up something called the Hawthorne effect. And this is the origins of human resources in corporate America, and it started here in Chicago in Cicero. And what they were doing was exactly that. This was the Industrial Revolution, post-Industrial Revolution, World War I, post-World War I era. And they were looking at how the attrition rate, or turnover in companies is so expensive. So they were looking at how do we motivate our employees? And this is when companies started to build parks, private parks, and theaters for their employees. And we're really struggling with this. So what they discovered with the Hawthorne effect, going back to plantation and slave owners, what they did was, if I encouraged you to, gave you a pat on the back, and I said, well, maybe if I give you more responsibility and a title, and maybe if I add in some benefits that everyone else doesn't have, maybe you're going to be a little more loyal to me. And those were the people that started to translate that down the line. So I highly encourage everyone to look up the Hawthorne effect, and really start to understand where the entire profession of HR comes from. And I have friends who work in the field and I love them dearly, but the entire industry is a horrific manipulation of the human condition in the business model. It's terrible. But it's another one of those things that we grew up with and never really questioned. But now we're like, one thing that I do want to point out, during this time when we have a lot of people who are, fortunately, they're able to collect a check while they're sitting at home. There are others who are not, and it's a great disparity. But for those who are, watch and see what's going to happen. Some of those people have been toying with starting their own businesses and developing hobbies into workable things. I guarantee you, if this goes on a little bit longer, which is why they want to reopen the states, they don't want us to figure this stuff out. You're going to see more entrepreneurship, because I like to remind people that every large company that you see now, UPS, 2 guys in a bike in a garage. All our major industries were started by just one person with an idea. It didn't even have to be a good idea, just enough gumption to go and do it. So right now, in the situation that we're in, people are bored and experimenting and thinking about things, and you're going to start to see people go, wait a second, maybe there's another way.
I like where we started here, and we opened up a lot of discussion topics. And I think there needs to be a part 2. I think that's what we can do. And, maybe between now and then, we can bring some other people, on board based off this discussion after they've seen it, who might want to participate, who actually have knowledge of these various fields. In particular, maybe a child counselor might be someone, to have on for part 2. So, that's not lined up yet, but, on Progressive Insider and the Digital Liberation Front, we can post, updates as to, what's going to be coming up the pipe. But I'm definitely going to try to follow up some of these threads with people who can give us some, credible answers. But yeah, Hair of the Dog, thank you, Carrie Barber. Thank you, 7KC Info Rail, Kansas City Info Rail, Digital Liberation Front Live. This is it. This is who we are. Everybody stay safe. Love you all. Peace.